Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you would join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have an absolutely wonderful episode to celebrate Valentine's Day. First up, Matt De La Peña and Loren Long will be here to celebrate their brand new picture book. It's called Home. And later in the show, debut picture book author Allison McGauley will be here to celebrate Kenzie's Little Tree. Hey families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. My friends, we have a treat for you today. Joining us first from San Diego, California, our guest is here to celebrate his new picture book. It's called Home. Please welcome to the show, Matt De La Peña.
Thanks for having me, Jed.
Love having you here. Love discovering that you are a Celtics fan. That's awesome. I just love it.
Live and die with that team.
There you go. Also joining us from the great state of Ohio, our guest is the illustrator of Home. Please welcome Loren Long. Hey, Loren, how are you?
Very good, Jed. Thank you for having me and Matt on to talk about our new book.
I'm delighted to have you on. I love bringing the creative teams in because I find it so fascinating how the creative process works. Matt, why don't we start by you? Can you tell us what Home is all about, please?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I write two different kinds of picture books, one that follows a single character and one that explores an idea. And Home fits into the latter there. It's kind of just exploring what does this concept of home mean and how does it change over time. Loren and I collaborated on a previous work called Love, and it was also an idea book. So this is, in some ways, it's a little bit of an extension of what we were trying to explore in Love.
Now, you're talking about collaborating together. Is this a very untraditional collaboration in that you were working simultaneously on the project?
Yeah, great question. I mean, when we collaborated on Love, our first book, we didn't know each other that well before we went on tour and the book came out. But we did connect a few times. One time when I was in Ohio, I met up with Loren and he showed me some sketches. We actually met up at a conference and had a big conversation about the book. Now that this is our second time through, I think we both kind of understand how each other wants to work. And maybe we've have a better understanding of the definition and the boundaries of the working relationship. So one of my favorite things about Loren is he loves to have conversations around the book, around this concept of home. Not necessarily about the illustrations. He obviously takes care of that part, but I love that he wants to engage in big philosophical conversations around the book.
That is fascinating, and again, as I've learned, and I was very surprised to learn that in most traditionally published books, the author and the illustrator have very little communication with each other. In fact, there have been at least 3 times where the first time the author and illustrator met was on the show. So that was kind of neat.
That's interesting.
Loren, how do you like this more collaborative process?
Well, I love it. And Matt touched on it there. So there are 2 kind of books that Matt writes. Also kind of, same, I could say, the 2 kind of books that I have illustrated. And you have a narrative character that goes through a beginning and a middle and an end. And then you have a more of a poetic piece about a profound exploration of a theme. And that was how love was. And that is how home is, with me illustrating Matt. So for me, as the illustrators, the person assigned to put visuals to these words and make it into a visual experience in a book for children, it was very helpful for me to talk to Matt. Let's just say Matt had a story about a little red bear that had something happen to it, and go through like a more of a narrative story with a setting and that kind of thing. I may not have needed to talk to Matt as much, but these big, powerful theme books, these reveries are hard to crack. So when I first read it, I was like, well, who is the character? When I first read Love, who is the character? What's going on here? What is Matt de la Peña thinking? What is going on in his brain? And then when we connected over that and we reached out, and we'd both been published. So, those boundaries aren't different. We have the same agent. We became friends. So it was very comfortable for us to talk. And in fact, I think that led to a better product in the end. If I can get inside the person who writes those words and why, and a little bit of the flavor, not only that, but also the background of this, whoever this individual is, then it helps me crack into a visual interpretation of the story and the poem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Matt, what inspired you to write Home?
Okay, so I don't think I've ever said this publicly, probably because the book isn't out yet. But yeah, I think I really started to think about it during the pandemic. We were all at home. And what fascinated me is how the home took on more jobs. My kids had to basically be at home for school. Home was now the playground. But what really, really was interesting to me is the way nature reclaimed some of the spaces that humans had dominated. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I just kind of wanted to start from that place of like, what does home mean to me now that, we've kind of gone through the pandemic? But going back to love, and you'll see that me and Loren will probably touch back on love a little bit, because this is our springboard into our collaborations. But I thought, what is the arc of this story when you don't have a main character? So I kind of in home, I thought, well, maybe the arc is, this idea of like home being connected to industry, to vehicles, to, things that are human ambitions. But then the disruption in the book is, what if a home is lost, and maybe you have to reconceptualize in your mind what home is if it's not a structure. And one of my favorite things Loren did, if you look at the illustrations closely, there's a lot of suggestions of the structure of home in the empty space. And maybe Loren can talk about that a little bit more, but that really, really underscores what I was trying to explore with home being more than just a physical structure.
Yeah. Loren, why don't you take the baton here?
Well, once again, Jed, De La Peña has given me a chance to illustrate images in a picture book that I normally wouldn't have thought I would illustrate. And we did it in love, and here we are again doing it in home. And that is really big themes in life and unpleasant things in life and even tragedy. And Matt can really talk eloquently more than I can about those honest truths about the world and how we open them up through the safety of the safe harbor of a picture book experience for children. But yeah, so home, this is exactly why I love to pick Matt's brain, because it is very big, wide open themes. But I think every illustrator, in the best sense, pictures and words are a partnership for the book. They have to work together. They need each other. And I always try to bring myself to it. I always try to bring whatever intellect I have to my images. And it makes the whole thing stronger. And sometimes you really want to add your own voice as an illustrator. You want to tell stories that maybe aren't even in the words to strengthen the final thing. But I will say with home, and I did that in some places in home, but also with home, Matt's words are so profound and clever. It's clever to me as I'm reading it. And his voice is so powerful that I felt my job as the illustrator for home was mostly to cast and compose and find a visual mood for each moment in the story. And once I did that, my job was simply to paint the heck out of these images and make them as moving and as beautiful as I could. Yeah. I'm not sure I answered your question, Jed, but
well, Matt was talking about you creating some spaces and images that reminded us of home that we don't typically think of as home. Am I paraphrasing that right, Matt?
Yeah.
I think so. Well, it could be sitting on a beach, and that feeling of home. There's a moment that I love in this manuscript that goes from that physical structure that the three of us are sitting in now, which is my home, Matt's home. I'm Jed. I don't know if you're at home, but my point being, and you go out and maybe your mother veers off the paved road and takes you and climbs a tree, and a gnarly branched tree. So that's an example of this beautiful sunset. And that's also home, this big space that it's not just our house, which we could lose, by the way. Mm-hmm. It is the world. It's our family. It's our community. It's our friends, it's our loved ones. And I love that turning point in Matt's words and Matt's manuscript, because it shows, and that was an example I think maybe Matt was suggesting. If you look at the negative space in that image with the little boy and his mother, it's in the shape of a house. If you look closely at the little girl on the beach, her shadow casts the shape of a house, the classic shape of a house, what we think about. So sorry, I didn't address that in the beginning.
No worries. We're just hanging out, a couple of guys hanging out. And Matt, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in your eyes, home is more than the bricks and mortar. Home is a feeling.
Yeah, I think, I think we have the right idea about what home is. It's a place where we could feel safe, but we often only think of it as the physical structure. And one of my favorite decisions Loren made is the cover. the cover of a book called Home has no house. And so that kind of sets the tone for the entire project. Like, you know what you're getting into when you look at the cover, you see the title Home, and you don't see a house. So I think that's what the book is really trying to get to. Also, I think another favorite move Loren made, which allowed me to see the book in a different way, is at one point, the text says, home is also the thump, thump, thump of your own human heart. And it's also the thump, thump, thump of the earth's sentimental song. And we have this face staring at the reader, just saying, this is our humanity is also our home. And in the eyes of that child, we see the earth as the pupil. And I think that is what the entire book is striving to do. It's trying to take us out of the man-made structure, and put us into our bigger home, bigger sense of home, which is the earth and nature. So I love the way visually Loren represented that.
Well, I was really moved when I saw the cover of Home and saw the girl on that tire swing, because for a couple of decades, that was what defined this home that I'm sitting in.
Wow.
Beautiful giant oak tree and a tire swing that the college frat boys who had destroyed the house living here before we moved in had tied up a tire swing. And it was a beautiful gift, and our kids just grew up, and the kids in the neighborhood grew up on that swing, and the people who came over for outings and whatnot. And so that really got me. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, I definitely want to talk to these guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Matt, I imagine some people might be listening to this and thinking, wow, there's some pretty heavy conversations going on, pretty heavy ideas, and this is definitely something that college kids should be thinking about, grown-ups should be thinking about, but a picture book audience, are they really ready to, start having these deep philosophical thoughts?
So I love that you went here, Jed, because I feel like every person who's a creator of books for young people, whether you're a writer or an illustrator, you have to ask yourself this one basic question. What is the job of the creator for the very young? Is it to tell the truth or preserve innocence? And of course, it's not black or white. It's somewhere in between. And I think for me, I always want to lean toward the truth. And another idea I have in the back of my head every time I write a book for kids is that I never want to write down to kids. In fact, I want to write up to them. And then, the truth is, Jed, I think different kids enter the book in different places. So, this book is brand new, so I'm going to use love as an example.
Yeah.
Some kids are just going to, we found through our travels and touring, they would enter the book at a certain level and they wouldn't see some of the bigger ideas that were there. There's one picture of a boy under a piano while his parents are fighting in the book Love. And we actually talked to a reading specialist, I believe in Colorado, who really made me understand this. She said, when I read this book to first and second graders, they thought the kid was playing hide and seek. When I read it to third and fourth graders, they said, oh, we think there's been a fight. Fifth and sixth graders would say, we think they're getting a divorce. So you can see different life experiences led to a different reading experience for the kids. So for me, I would much rather have many entry points and a deeper level to hit if a kid is ready to go there. And I always say to sort of like not take myself too serious. Like, I think there is a place for every kind of picture book, a silly picture book, a purely fun picture book. But I think there should also be a place for, big ideas in picture book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I love that one of the ideas that I'm hearing is that ideally we could all just look at the world as our home.
Yeah.
Anytime that we're with another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loren, I've had conversations with illustrators, and I had these two different interviews on the same day, and both were with illustrators of graphic novels. And the first illustrator came on, and she said, "Well, I knew this was going to be a graphic novel, and I knew I needed to draw this character a couple of hundred times, so I made it as simple as possible to make it easy on myself." And then the next illustrator of a graphic novel came on and said, "This is really driving me crazy because it's a historical book about ancient Greece, and there's many details, and it's so difficult." Where do you land on that? Obviously you've created these beautiful images, but do you like projects where you're really challenged as an illustrator?
I do, Jed. Great question. I can say whether this is, I can't tell if this is a smart decision on my part or not, but I've never made it easy for myself when I'm illustrating a book. And certainly, but I've never illustrated a graphic novel, so hands off and tip the hat to those creators. But no, I never make it easy for myself, and maybe that's why I still love doing this after. I think Home is my 28th or 27th picture book that I've illustrated in about 20 years. And every time, Jed, Matt, I'm telling you, man, every time it's hard. Every time I feel like it's my first book. Every time when I'm staring, I'm holding up a manuscript. Every time when there's no book and there's no images and I'm there alone with those words, it's hard, it's difficult. But I think that's part of the reason I love it. And I love storytelling, and I love cracking that code. And the most important part of any picture book, probably any graphic novel too, is just those moments where you're choosing spreads. You're choosing what moments in a text to bring to life with a picture. And then how does that timing and pacing, and how does that work with the page turn? When you turn a page, it's just like you have the power that a film director has when they are shifting a scene from one to the next. And those are all calculated things. So the storyboard, and they call it a sketch dummy of making a book from a manuscript to an actual book with images, is the most important part. And it's just little pencil drawings for me, little thumbnail drawings. And that's where the real ideas come from. And that's really the most important part. The final paintings are hard too, though. But to me, they're not even as important as those early decisions on what to do. Do you zoom in, if you're Steven Spielberg, on the character? Or do you zoom out and go above ground for one mood is different than the other? And if you're a film director, you have the benefit of music, which is so mood-filled. You can really change the mood with a string instrument as opposed to the banging of a drum if there's a car chase, for example. But when I'm illustrating a De La Peña manuscript, I hear, and this is not one of those artsy-fartsy things. I'm just saying, I hear music,
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about music a lot. And there are loud moments and soft moments and reverent moments and true moments. And that's why it's fun for me. So.
Awesome.
Can I jump in there, Jed?
Sure, absolutely.
Because, I love that you sort of pinpointed the turn to earth, right? And I think the reason why Loren is, the minute I finished the manuscript, I thought Loren. Our agent thought Loren. The editor of the book thought this is a Loren book. And the reason why is because I feel like Loren is a very earthy illustrator. I think it's fair to say Loren respects all the different kinds of arts that are being, approaches that are out there, computer, et cetera, et cetera. But I know Loren is very physical, and it's natural, and it's old school. I think, Loren, you may have said in your previous book, The Yellow Bus, that there were even maybe some hairs from your dog that ended up in the final paintings and your fingerprints. And like, that is so similar to the character in Home when she's reading on the beach and she sinks her feet into the earth. So I think it was like such a natural combination.
Well,
Thank you.
you know, I love that you guys, Matt, I love that you're a fan of the Celtics, but I also love that you guys are fans of each other.
Yeah.
And that really comes through. Loren, I'm real curious. The moment, and I love the creative process. I'm wondering, do you remember the moment where you came up with that idea that Matt described of the character just looking at you and a real close up, and then we see the earth? I think I remember you saying in the eye of the character. That seems like such a tremendous idea. When that came together for you, were you like, yeah, this is it, or was it just another illustration? We'll go to the next one.
No, it wasn't just another illustration. And I hope if nothing else, your listeners can feel the enthusiasm that both Matt and I have for our craft. But yeah, that was a moment where it was like, I'm in the end zone. I think I might spike the ball, you know, because I'm like, that is going to be such a cool image, and I get to be the one to paint it, and I'm going to knock, this is going to be a showstopper. You know, this is all in between my ears, right? Because I haven't done it yet. I could fail. But when I saw that sketch, I was thinking, yeah, that's it. Now, the other thing too is Home stands alone, but it definitely is somewhat of it's got to be related somehow to love. And in Love, there was this really powerful moment in Matt's text about a child looking in the mirror to find love, which was so powerful, right? And in that moment, I chose to do a big face looking out. And then, Matt, could you say those words again on the spread for the face in Home?
Let's see if I get this right.
Yeah.
It's the thump, thump, thump of the earth's sentimental song, inviting you into the harmony of things.
So I'm already armed, Jed, with the idea that I had the big face in Love, one of my favorite images from the book, if I do say so myself. And then I thought, okay, boom, this is a moment where I'm gonna go there again. And it's going to complement, it's going to team up with those eloquent words that Matt just said. And it's going to be a different looking face of a child, but those eyes are going to demand that you listen to those words. And then I had my first sketch was stars in the eyes, because I knew we were going to turn the page, Matt. Remember that? I think we turned the page to the interior of the rope swing, where the child is noticing the first stars. And then I'm like, no, this is really nailing, I think, the essence of Matt's text. And that is, you see the earth, which doesn't make any sense because she is on the earth, but it's symbolic. It's to me a powerful mood. And yeah, so that.
Well, you know what, Loren? It's kind of the whole point of the book, beyond any of the text, is that I feel like sometimes we're taught as kids to think of ourselves as separate from Earth, and we have to build walls around us to protect us from the Earth. And I hope what the book's trying to explore is that maybe the true integration of like understanding yourself in the world is to know that you are a part of Earth. And I think that illustration really captures it. You know, it's a part of you. The earth is a part of you.
Thank you. And I would add too, Jed, real briefly, in Matt's text here, in Matt's story, in our story, there's a real security ultimately in thinking, you know, that way about the world we live in. There's a real reassuring quality, I think, and because there is a moment there's a couple of moments in this story where a home is lost, a physical home is lost. But it's really cool to know that even if that happens to somebody that's maybe reading this book or somebody that knows somebody who has read this book, there's the empathy piece too, that you're not the only one going through this experience, and home is greater than that. And there's resilience in this text that Matt has written. And anyway, yeah.
Well, I think this is certainly a very timely book because so many people here and throughout Los Angeles, not far from you, Matt, down in North Carolina, not all that far from Ohio, Loren. There's so many people who are suffering and without homes. And obviously for those, I think this would be a reassuring book for those families. But I think helping us help our kids develop an empathy for all of our brothers and sisters and this beautiful human family, I think would be really powerful. And I know myself, if my kids were still 4, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, this is a book that I'd absolutely want to be reading with them and would have so much fun reading over and over again, I'm sure. And so hats off to both of you. Congratulations. It sounds like a great project. And I'm wondering, Matt, what's next? Love, home? What emotion are we going to explore next?
Loren and I are going on a tour for our home, and it's a pretty extensive one. We're going to be all over the country. And after we present at schools, we often go have dinner. And on one of those dinners, he and I are going to decide what's another thing we could explore. It's so fun to have those conversations. And one other thing I wanted to add, Jed, you were talking about maybe this would be a book that you would read to your children when they were young. But I also love the idea of the picture book not just being for young people. If it is a big idea, it really can hit the parent reading to the child just as much as it could hit the child. I hope that teachers who read the book in class one day, I hope it affects them as much as the students too.
Yeah, I agree. And I apologize if I made it sound like it's only for kids.
No. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes, no, I absolutely. As you were talking, I had a great experience. Last year, I spent the month of November touring El Salvador with a troupe from Clowns Without Borders, and very quickly, we're different home every night, but very quickly, the members of the troupe became a home for me.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a very powerful experience. And we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about home and more about both of your projects. Loren, can we start with you? Is there a place folks should check out to learn more about you?
Yes, they can go to my website, lorenlong.com, and they can ask for this book at any place where they sell books. I always love when somebody supports their local independent bookstore. And I'm on social media platforms somewhat. So you can find me at Loren Long on X and at the Loren Long on Instagram.
Awesome. Matt, what about you? Where can we go to find out more about you and your work?
Well, the one thing we've discovered over the years is that social media is not our home.
Good distinction.
Home is real people. But yeah, just like Loren, I'm also popping around there. But I think, Loren and I are going to go on tour. So if we're in anyone's region, we'd love to meet them in person, and maybe we'll end up at their school. But yeah, I also have a website, mattdelapeña.com.
Do we have to do the little tilde when we're going to your
Nope. You know what? They don't love the tilde on these websites. So yeah, there's no tilde on that.
All right. We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Home. Very powerful book and experience from our guests, Matt De La Peña and Loren Long. My friends, thank you so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much, Jed. You're our first interview, so we're so excited we got to share it with you.
Awesome. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Joining us right now from the beautiful province of Ontario in Canada, our guest is celebrating her debut picture book. It's called Kenzie's Little Tree. Please welcome to the show, Allison McGauley. Hey, Allison, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today on Reading with Your Kids. I love listening to your discussions with creators. It's such an honor to be here today. I'm always listening on my way to work. And yeah, so it's really cool to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I've noticed you've been a big supporter on Instagram, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate those kind words. And I'm excited for everybody who is going to be listening to you and finding out about Kenzie's Little Tree. What a cute story. Tell us about it, please.
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, it's my debut book, and it's very much a story of my heart because it's based a lot on my own family. So it's illustrated by Emily Leduc, and it's about some experiences of my own family as we navigated the ebb and flow of my own chronic illness throughout the seasons. So Kenzie's Little Tree is about a little girl. She plants a tree in her yard one summer day with her family. It stands a bit crooked and some of its leaves are brown, but its branches are open, like mom's arms waiting for hugs, and Kenzie promises to keep it safe. When fall blows in dangerous winds and a storm swirls while mom's away at the hospital, Kenzie fears that her promise will be broken. A gentle story of family, self-awareness, and resilience, Kenzie's Little Tree reminds us that though the world is constantly changing, and oftentimes difficult, we can be bold and strong, just like the little tree. I'm super excited for this book to be out in the world and in the hands of kids. I've also written a family discussion guide because it is a book that really lends itself to conversations with families. And I hope it'll be a really helpful tool to guide conversations about experiences, thoughts, and feelings. And as a teacher, I also wrote a teacher guide with lesson plans that relate to reading, writing, and science to accompany the book.
I'm imagining that there might be a listener or two out there thinking, oh, man, chronic illness. Why do I want to read a book about chronic illness and this sadness to my little 5, 6, 7-year-old?
Yeah, good question. So in this picture book, as most, all picture books aim to have a lot of hopefulness in them. And I want people to know, families that live with chronic illness, to feel represented. Families and kids that don't have chronic illness to know that just like in all families, there's fun adventures and tough times. And in Kenzie's Little Tree, it represents Kenzie's family. And every Saturday they do family adventures. And so the book, it goes through a full year, and there's a lot of fun times together that the family has. They go to the pumpkin patch in the fall. They're playing outside and building in the winter time. And there's a lot of fun to be had. But like with every family, there's ups and there's downs. So there are difficult times as well. And I really want people to know that it's difficult having chronic illness, but it's not all doom and gloom. And there are definitely fun times, exciting times, just like in any family.
Yeah. The idea that your book can be a mirror for families with chronic illness, and also a window for families who aren't directly experiencing it now, I think is really important. I love the fact that books can allow us to see what other people are dealing with. I think that's super, super important. Mm-hmm. As somebody yourself, I read on your website, you're dealing with chronic illnesses. What are some of the things that you want families that might be reading this book that aren't dealing with a chronic illness right now? What kind of things would you want them to know and take away from this?
Sure. Yeah, it's a really good point, because it is a book that families with chronic illness will resonate with. but also for all families. I hope that all kids will think about their inner strength and realize that their loved ones are tough too, so that they don't feel so much weight and responsibility. Because even if there's not a chronic illness in your family, there's always hard things, even an illness that's not long, or even things that aren't illnesses. There's, these days, so many difficult things that we're dealing with. At our house, we like the expression, we can do hard things. And I hope that reading this book will remind all kids that they can do hard things, and also that their loved ones can do hard things, because in the story, Kenzie really feels the weight. So the tree represents her mom, and she feels like it's her responsibility to care for her mom. So I want kids to know that other family members are also strong, and there's not so much weight on their shoulders as well.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you have kids. Are you a mom, Allison?
Yeah, so this story actually is based, I have 2 girls, just like in the story. So it is loosely based on my own family. Yeah, so they are 10 and 13 currently. And when they were 4 and 7, I was hospitalized for about 10 days in a different city with a flare-up of my IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease. And so a big part of the idea came from that experience. Wanting to show what that experience was like when I came back from the hospital. We didn't talk about it very much because my husband and I thought, we'll move on. It'll be easier for the girls to forget. But then what happened was every time I went out, the girls were anxious, oh, are you going to have to go to the hospital again? They were very worried. And so we talked with a family therapist, and we found out that repeated conversations about traumatic experiences can help children to better process their emotions. So then we started having conversations about that hospital experience, which really helped. And throughout the years, we still sometimes bring it up. It's been about 5 years. And just reflecting back on it seems to be really helpful. So learning about the importance of talking with kids about their experiences was another reason that I wrote the book, and also would be helpful for families that don't deal with chronic illness, because it's just so helpful to talk with kids about experiences. Kids really like to have repeated conversations about these things. It just helps them so much with processing their feelings.
Yeah. I am so happy. I'm almost 100 years old, but
You are not.
When I was a kid, we didn't talk about anything. Someone's in the hospital for months at a time. Eat your food.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that we're talking more with our kids. I'm really happy that there are books out there like Kenzie's Little Tree that help start those conversations.
Yeah, thank you. I am really happy to be a part of the conversation, bringing this diverse voice. We're seeing a lot more diverse picture books these days, which I love. And I'm just so honored to add to the conversation by representing kids like Kenzie, who have a chronically ill caregiver, and also kids who have chronic illness themselves, because there's, a lot of children these days. There's kids with arthritis, kids with IBD, so many things. And I think it's really powerful for young people to know that there's other kids with similar experiences, thoughts and feelings, and that in seeing this, they'll be empowered and open to having more conversations, because, as you said, people didn't talk about this. Even as I'm almost 50 years old. If you're almost 100, I'm almost 50. And, even as a child, same, we didn't talk about things very much. So I think it's really important, and we're learning the importance of that now.
I'm curious, were your daughters able to see themselves in this book right away?
Definitely. Actually, when I started drafting the book, so I actually started by interviewing my daughters about their time and about the time when I went to the hospital because I was really trying to make it, obviously, the perspective of a child. I wasn't sure how I would draft the book, if it was going to be an epistolary fiction where one of the daughters would write letters to the mom in the hospital, or how I would approach the format of the story. So I started with interviewing them, which I didn't end up using per se, but it did help with getting inside, how were they feeling, and like the emotional arc of the story. Really, it did help me with that.
Yeah. And how do they feel having their story shared in this book?
They're really excited. They are they're my hugest fans. My oldest daughter is always listening to, I read her all my stories, and she actually gives really great feedback. So yeah, they're really supportive and really great. And they've actually been making me they made me a little stop motion videos to go with the book. And yeah, they're super supportive and really happy about it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, did you always want to write children's books, or was it just like families need this tool?
I've always loved books, always loved reading. I was an early reader, and I've been an elementary teacher for almost 20 years. So I've always loved reading. I do special education right now, but I taught grade 1 and grade 3 for many years. So I always loved teaching through picture books. So I've always, my whole life, loved picture books. And I always did want to be a writer as a kid, but didn't think that, I didn't know about how to do it back then or know how to go about it. So I ended up becoming a teacher, and I'm still doing that. But during the pandemic, as many of us did, I had a lot more time on my hands, started feeling like I needed something creative to fill myself up. And so I decided I'm just going to try this. I'd always wanted to try it, but never had. So I took a course and met some amazing people, and I just kept going with it and decided to pursue publication. And yeah, so I'm just still going. I have lots of manuscripts, and so it's such a passion now. I love it so much. So yeah, this is my debut, but I write about all sorts of topics, and I absolutely love it.
Awesome. I think when we look back at the pandemic, hopefully we'll learn from it, some of the things we did right, some of the things we did wrong. But one thing the pandemic did do is it launched at least 2 million podcasts, and I don't know how many books. Yes, it did.
Wow.
It did. We were out for a couple of years before the pandemic hit, but yeah, boy, it just exploded. Literally 2 million launched during that time. I'm excited for you. This was obviously a very personal book for both you and your family. What are you looking to explore? You mentioned that you have a number of manuscripts. What will you be exploring in those different manuscripts? Where are you kind of leaning into with your writing career?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's quite a variety of works that I have. So I do have a few manuscripts that feature children, actually. Children dealing with their own chronic illness. I have a few where just a child living their best life who happens to have chronic illness. So it's not the focus of the story. And I also love writing funny stories that have tie-ins with social emotional learning and the natural world. I'm a huge bird lover, tree lover. We live across from a pond, so I love just going out and seeing the birds, the great blue herons and everything, turtles. So I'm really inspired by nature. So yeah, I have a real variety I like lyrical writing, also funny books. So yeah, I get inspired by nature and by a lot of funny things my kids say and do. So it just, whatever inspires me, then I go with that.
Awesome. You mentioned that you're a special needs teacher right now and that you taught elementary school. My beautiful wife taught special needs kids for 34 years. We've talked a lot here on the podcast with teachers and how education's changed over the years here in the States. What about in Canada? How has education changed for the better or for the worse in the Ontario schools?
It's a tough question. Well, I'd say there's a big need for more educational assistance and more congregated classes. There's a lot of students that have complex needs and need more spaces in classrooms. Right now in Canada, one of the great things is that we're working more on the science of reading right now. So that's been really helpful. So right now I teach a small reading group. I've been doing it for about 5 years. It's a It's a specialized reading program called the Empower Reading Program that was actually created in Sick Kids in Toronto. And it's an amazing program. It was originally created for students with learning disabilities. So it's just really targeted reading instruction that's evidence-based, scientifically studied. And I see really great results with it. So it's like one of those life-changing programs for kids. So I run it. There's 110 lessons. It takes me pretty much the whole year to teach a small group. And it's just amazing to see the gains that the kids make in reading. So I'm really happy that we're moving towards this, the science of reading, and we're really starting to see results with kids, because we did have, especially after the pandemic, just saw a lot of students that were behind with their literacy skills and their decoding. So I think we're headed in a good direction now with that, I think.
That's fantastic. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Kenzie's Little Tree and find out more about you.
Definitely. So Kenzie's Little Tree launches March 11th, 2025. You can find it anywhere books are sold. My website is my whole name, so ALISONMCGAULEY.com, so AllisonMcGauley.com. And I'm also on social media on various platforms at Allison McGauley. And you can also find the lesson plans and the discussion questions that I mentioned to accompany Kenzie's Little Tree on my website or at orcabook.com, which is the Orca Book Publishers website.
Awesome. And is it available for pre-order at the moment?
Yes, it is available for pre-order as well.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of the debut picture book. It's Kenzie's Little Tree. Our guest has been Allison McGauley. Allison, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, to make sure that you don't miss a moment of Reading with Your Kids, please be sure to subscribe to the show. We love the iHeartRadio app, where we've been up in the top 30, top 10, top 20 podcasts on the iHeartRadio app since, I think, like 2018. And it's been phenomenal. We love that app. They nominated us for the iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award back in 2019, and we're honored to be on their platform. We're also honored to be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods. We're very often in the top podcasts on Good Pods as well. Wherever you find your favorite shows, please subscribe to Reading with Your Kids, and please tell your friends. And another thing that can really be helpful for us is if you leave a 5-star review, letting people know that you love the show and telling the algorithm to let more people see it. We also want to encourage you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on Twitter. You heard me mention that I've noticed Allison McGauley's been a big fan of ours on Instagram, and you can see all her likes and shares, and you can also check out her Instagram and social media accounts. We'd love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Lots of things for you to do there. You can visit our Certified Great Read Wall of Fame. You can check out our blog, and you can also send us a message using the contact button up at the top of the page. And authors, you absolutely want to visit readingwithyourkids.com to find out how you can be a guest here on the show. Being a guest is fun. It's easy. I mean, you heard Matt de la Peña telling us how happy he was to be able to share this book with us. The first interview that him and Loren did about this book here on Reading with Your Kids. They had a lot of fun. Allison had a lot of fun. You would have a lot of fun telling thousands of Kidlet fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. Find out how to do that at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guests, the author and illustrator of Home, Matt de la Peña and Loren Long. I also want to thank Allison McGauley. Please be sure to check out her debut picture book, Kenzie's Little Tree. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Oh, yeah.